What happens when the lead singer of a band dies? Does the band replace them? Does the band just call it quits? Or does the band just become a clothing line? Well, let's discuss this because this recently came to the front of my mind with the passing of Ozzy Osbourne, which we're all sad about and we'll definitely miss him because he's responsible for some amazing songs with Black Sabbath and in his solo career. And he also has some really good guest features on songs as well too. So, what's going to happen now for his situation? I mean, I think Black Sabbath was pretty much retired and they're not really doing anything else. So, what's this mean for him and his music and for the rest of rock? Well, before we talk about Black Sabbath, let's take a look at the band that I think has kind of created a template for other bands to follow, and that is Nirvana. We all know that Kurt Cobain passed away in the early 90s, and the band was like at its peak. Probably one of the biggest bands in the world at that time. And now, if you want to know about Nirvana, you probably obviously don't see anything about them doing shows or releasing new merch. But you walk into a Target, a Walmart, or a Hot Topic, and there's tons of Nirvana t-shirts everywhere with the smiley face that's like squiggly and stuff. So, is that Nirvana's legacy? It's not even the music for some people. It's t-shirts. And there's tons of memes out there where people are saying, oh, if you can't name 3 of that band's songs, you shouldn't wear their t-shirt. Or people in my generation or older generations pointing at younger kids being like, do you even know who's in that band or any of those band songs? Because they don't. It's kind of just turned into a clothing line, which for the remaining members of Nirvana, and I guess whoever owns the rights to doing this clothing line, props to them, because in a way you are allowing a generation to rediscover that music by having it be there as a clothing line. And there's these conversations going on of like, oh, do you know those songs? Okay, go listen to them. So you're letting newer generations rediscover that music, but at the same time, there's nothing else really kind of keeping the legacy of Nirvana around apart from those t-shirts. And I think Nirvana may have started this, but Guns N' Roses has definitely picked up on it. In the last 5 years, I've seen so many people wearing Guns N' Roses t-shirts, but they don't even really know Guns N' Roses songs or even a band member name. And that's just really good marketing on Guns N' Roses' part, knowing that they had a good logo, they had a good design, and they had a good aesthetic. And if they make t-shirts, they're going to be able to sell stuff and people will buy because of that aesthetic. And then maybe it leads into people listening to music. But again, like Guns N' Roses, all those members are technically still alive. So they could come back and do music. They have done music in the last couple years, just a song here or there. Slash has his own career, which has been decent. He's got some really good songs, but they're not really currently making music that I'm aware of. But every day I feel like I see someone in a Guns N' Roses t-shirt walking around a mall. And whether they know that band or not, they're wearing the band on their shirt and they paid for that shirt. And it just creates brand awareness for that band. So this isn't technically a bad thing. Like, this is great for Guns N' Roses because they're making money from the shirt and they're making money maybe from streaming. And in a world where streaming is the dominant aspect, like the clothing line is definitely the way to go to make money. It's just at a certain point, when do you stop becoming a musician and start becoming a clothing line? And I think Guns N' Roses definitely crossed over with that because they could make more music, but they don't, partially because of personal reasons within the band. But all those members are still around. They could definitely take advantage of making more music together. Nirvana definitely can't. But I will say that I don't think Dave Grohl has ever taken advantage of the fact that Nirvana is a clothing line and for his personal benefit. Like, he's not out here pushing Foo Fighters shirts. He's out here making music. So where does that leave us with Black Sabbath? Are they going to turn into a clothing line, or what are they going to do? How are they going to handle Ozzy Osbourne's death? Well, I'm kind of okay with it if Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath kind of start to do a clothing line. Because at this point in time, like, yes, he's passed away, and this could be something that's like in memory of him or a celebration of the band. I think when it gets a little out of control, though, is maybe like 3 to 5 years down the line when that's what's being pushed is just the t-shirts. And while this band is considered, I guess, like a classic rock band, like they're not really going to be putting out with more music. So what's the alternative? I guess it really just comes down for me is who's making the call on whether they're making new t-shirts or not. And at the end of the day, is it something that if it's the band members, are they just passionate about it? Because if the band members are passionate about releasing t-shirts, designing new shirts, and talking about the music that they've made, or being active in these choices, then I'm all for that. But if we have someone that is really just in corporate, that's like, oh, I think this would be a cool, good idea, and will make tons of money, then that's a different conversation that I don't necessarily support. But it just depends, because I think ideally, whatever the outcome is, whoever's making the decisions, we need to have the forefront of remembering the band and the music. With Nirvana, we've kind of strayed so far away from people even knowing the music, they just like the t-shirt design. So with Black Sabbath, hopefully it's at a point where people are like, oh, yeah, that's the band. I like them. I want to buy that shirt. As opposed to, oh, that's a cool design. Let me buy the shirt. I don't know who the band is, or that maybe they're even a band at all. So it kind of can go either way, because you either have people that know the band and they buy the shirt, or people that don't know the band, they buy the shirt, and then maybe they get into music. Either way, it's just the fact that I don't like that bands are being kind of portrayed as a clothing line. I'm not against them being a clothing line, but I think the bands should do their best to be like, you're buying a band t-shirt. Like Nirvana, they've never done like a tour shirt in a long time because they don't tour. The band's over. But if they came out with a shirt that had some tour dates on it, or a limited edition run of shirts that had, a similar design, but they just said like, this is show a memory of the show on this day or whatever in this year, that would be kind of cool, and maybe hint to something else. Or if they came out with a shirt that was like the set list of a specific show, just something to kind of tie the fact together that like, yeah, it's Nirvana, but Nirvana's not a clothing line, it's also a band. And yeah, that does cost a little bit more in the design and the ink and materials and all that stuff. But again, it's just who's making the decision at the end of the day. Is it a record label that owns the rights to the clothing line that's like, we don't care, people are going to buy these shirts? Or is it members of Nirvana that are going to try and get people to listen to the music again and remember the music? And again, this is kind of just like the cycle of how things are going to start to go, because Black Sabbath is like one of those very early like metal rock bands. And, as we just get older, they're going to get phased out, they're going to pass away, and then we're going to have a new group of bands that will be the earliest metal rock bands that are still alive. I mean, Black Sabbath was like late 60s, early 70s, and we're going to be getting closer and closer to the mid 70s, late 70s, 80s. And, we've got to have a new group of rock kind of come into the scene and take over the mantle. And while we can't necessarily like rush that process, it's always nice to be able to see an older generation endorse a younger generation. So with the passing of Ozzy Osbourne, I hope this does push more artists and musicians to make music they want to make. And those that want to make rock music or metal music, I hope it can be seen and heard by the older generation, so we can kind of see that torch be passed on to the younger generation to carry on what that generation has started or inspired. But what do you guys think? Do you think as lead singers pass away, the band just kind of turns into a clothing line? Or do you think this is done in a way of celebrating and remembering the band as much as possible? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace.